Welcome to the Air Power Airwaves, the Air Power Manufacturing Solutions podcast series where we talk about manufacturing issues that impact you. Hey, this is Travis Stirewalt. Welcome to another round of Air Power Airwaves podcast. Today, I have some really smart people from Air Power in here. I'm waiting for Tyler to respond. You guys are going to have fun today. It's going to be a wild ride. Okay, I'm going to introduce to you the leader of the service department at Air Power here in High Point. And actually, you cover all the service departments, right?
That's correct.
So that is Tyler Mabe. Tyler, good to have you.
Good to see you, Travis.
We've done some projects before.
We have.
Showcase of the service department.
We did that a couple months ago.
Yep, that was a lot of fun. We actually got some good traffic with that. I still think you could eat off the floor in there. All right, the person to my right is Chris Hawkins. Chris, this is your first time.
Yeah.
First time with us on the podcast. Actually, it's your first time too, right? We haven't done a podcast.
First time on the podcast.
All right, so Chris is a field service technician with Air Power. So in a lot of ways, we think about service. We think about the traditional service department of, things get dropped off and repaired. Sometimes that's not possible, and that's where this gentleman's department comes in. And we are going to dig deeper into that today, too. But, guys, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
And just remember, man, get comfortable. Let's have a good time. And Jai's behind the camera over there. Jai, thank you. How about give me some club sound?
Okay, hold on just a second. Here we go.
Yes, we're ready to go. All right, so why does Air Power have a service department? Who wants to take that one? You.
Well, the main focus of a service department is to repair what the customer has. We do air tools, battery powered tools.
Okay.
Basically, it's just another point of sale for our account managers.
So basically, if we sell it in the tool world, the chances are we're going to repair it, or at least be the first ones to look at it.
If Air Power sells it, we're going to be the ones to repair it.
Okay, perfect. So if you know Air Power, on our website we have like top 50 brands that we deal with, right? A bunch of those.
So I'd say some of the top brands we see is Ingersoll Rand, Graco, Binks, Clico, Gema,
DeVilbiss?
DeVilbiss. Yeah, we see a little bit of DeVilbiss coming through. That's most of the top brands I think we have.
All right. So there's different types of service. I know there's service, when something's broken, obviously. But we basically call it factory authorized service, right?
Correct.
So that's where people actually have the training done to do the repairs the way the manufacturer needs it
So
done.
all of our technicians, they do factory training on diagnostics.
So they're actually going to school for this.
Yep.
Being trained on that particular piece of equipment so they know everything that could possibly go wrong and how to repair it.
Sometimes these are 2-day classes. Sometimes they're whole week classes.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, some of that stuff is pretty intense.
It is.
Now, do you guys get into like the proportioning systems and things like that, repairing things like that?
Yes, we do.
Or is it more the components of it?
So as far as proportioning, we have a couple PR70s in the service department right now.
Okay.
A Graco PR70. We have some HFRs back there. So
describe the.
It's a hydraulic fixed ratio.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about now. All right. Cool. So how many service departments do we have at Air Power? This is by far the biggest one.
So High Point is our largest service department. We have 4 guys here, 2 coordinators. We have a branch in Baltimore. We have a branch in Salem, Virginia. We have a branch in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and Orlando, Florida.
Okay. Do we do repairs in all of those?
Every single one of our branches does repairs. High Point can do pretty much anything that we sell. The other branches have their certain specialties.
Okay. All right. Now I'm going to skip a little bit over to you and talk about the field service technicians. Now we know from Tyler what the service department is and kind of who runs the show there or what they do. Talk to me about field service technicians. What's different in your role than their role?
My role is to show up on site at the customer's facility, and either perform preventive maintenance. It's a breakdown situation we're trying to fix, and get them back up and running and back in production and things like that.
Okay.
We do emergency phone calls and things like that.
So basically, if it's a critical, urgent situation, or the part's too big to just bring back,
Yes.
you guys those are two, I guess, of the biggest reasons why you're going to go down there.
Yeah.
And you're to the customer. All right. We talked about a few of these things already. I'm just trying to move through. Let's talk about typical bench repair. Tyler and I have gone over some of the key things that we want to talk about. So the first one was preventative maintenance. How does that fall in? How does that work?
Typically, what would be ideal is for the customer have a backup piece of equipment.
Okay.
That way, they can set up for like a quarterly, biannually, annually, getting their equipment serviced to keep them from being down.
So when one goes
So
down,
when one goes down, they can put the new equipment in its place, send it in for repair, and it
get
keeps
it back
them
and
rolling.
now have a backup.
Correct.
So that when the same scenario goes down again,
Right.
yep. Okay,
Yep.
I'm follow you there.
Correct.
Okay, and I'm sure you guys do some preventative maintenance in the field as well.
Yes. We try to set up contracts if the customer wants to. Each contract is kind of unique to the customer because everybody's needs are different, and but we also recommend that the customer have backup spare parts.
Yep.
So it makes the preventative maintenance easier. So we would install the new equipment, bring the old equipment back, turn it into the service department. They would rebuild it, and then we would just keep the rotation going.
How often do you guys find that a backup piece of equipment is not there?
I mean, it's over 50% of the time, man.
Wow. And some of these aren't like ridiculously expensive, right?
No, I mean,
Just routine.
so I mean, on your fluid side, the equipment there can get a little more pricier than your tool side. I mean, just like at home, everyone's got 3 hammers,
Yep.
They're inexpensive, but
4, 7.
yeah. But I mean, when it comes to you're talking a $10,000 piece of equipment, sometimes customers' funds aren't there to have 2 pieces of the
Correct.
same equipment.
Correct.
Which is where Chris comes in. For an emergency call, he can get out to the customer and hopefully get them up and running.
Yeah, but unless,
Even if it's a Band-Aid fix
yeah.
for the time being.
But
until they
I
can get
guess a service contract is in place, and I really don't want to get into a bunch of numbers here, but it's going to depend on what's set up to depend on how expensive that's going to be to repair, correct?
Yes.
Like if the customer has an agreement with us, does that pretty much fix a price on that they've been able to work with us on outside of maybe the cost of goods that need to be there for repair?
Yeah, generally that will fix a price. There are certain times where if it's outside of the scope of the agreed upon maintenance, if it's an emergency outside of that, then it would be a separate charge and
Gotcha.
things like that.
But when you have a service contract, that all is outlined there, right? Like
Yes.
what's expected,
Mhm.
and it's not an open-ended service contract. It's specific to what you're
Yes.
writing the contract for.
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to get into that a little bit later. Let's talk about calibration. That also kind of falls into preventative maintenance.
Correct.
Making sure that something is making sure it's in spec. So
Right, so some of our customers have different standards as to when their equipment needs calibrating. This is more in reference to exact torque tools.
okay,
So let's say a customer's wanting to run something at 80 newton meters.
this is like one of the critical torques, right?
Right, it is.
Yep. Okay.
So, I mean, if they're wanting to get 80 newton meters and they've been running their tool in their facility and they've tested their torque and see they're getting under or over the specified torque, they'll send that tool into us. We have equipment here to calibrate their equipment, which we send off yearly for our calibration
okay.
to be able to get them back to their correct specs.
All right. All right. Warranty repair.
So all of our service locations that we discussed earlier, they're all factory authorized warranty centers.
Okay.
Ingersoll Rand, Gema, Graco, Binks.
And so all of those, basically if something falls within the warranty, it's sent back here when we work with them on that.
Correct.
All right. We talked a little bit about emergency repair in the field, but you deal with emergency repairs also, right? Is more in that world.
So the way the economy's been lately, the emergency repairs and bench service have been a little more tough than they were a few years ago.
What's driving that with emergency repairs?
So, parts.
Lack of parts?
It's a lack of parts, yep.
Yep.
It's just delayed shipping times. And
So I remember this was quite a while back when we did that, when we actually did the filming for the walkthrough
Right.
of the lab. You had shelves that had already been through service, had already been diagnosed, and were just racks filled with them. And I asked you, what are all these here for? You said, I'm waiting on parts.
yep.
Has it gotten any better? Are we seeing any relief?
So yeah, it has gotten better. I think whenever we last did that walkthrough, at the time I think there was over 800 tools back there.
Okay.
And as of yesterday, I think we were down to around 400 and some. So we're looking pretty good.
Cool deal. All right, so we talked a little bit about service contracts. How can we get if a customer is interested in a service contract? How do they go about setting one up with us? Do you have to go out and kind of get your eyeball on it?
Yeah, a lot of times, if they'll get with their account manager first
Okay.
and go over kind of what they're looking at. If it's a simple system, a lot of times I can look at pictures and figure out what they need as long as I have equipment model numbers and things like that. If it's a little more complex, I like to go out with the account manager. We'll talk through it, sit down with the customer and just ask them, what do you want out of this service contract?
A lot of a lot of it falls into the world of, I guess, liability. Like how much are we willing to take on?
Yes.
And at what cost? Versus who's going to bear the weight of the responsibility of whatever that is, and that's probably as different as the project is.
Yeah.
So I know you're asking the questions, but question for Chris is, can you explain how a blanket PO kind of eases the pains of a normal service contract?
A blanket PO can ease the pain as far as if we're out on site and we see there's something else that needs to be done, or the customer wants us to, hey, take a look at this over here and add on. It's easier to add on to a blanket PO, and it covers, the billing and the
versus
invoices.
starting up the whole
Yes.
choo-choo
Correct.
train all over
Yes.
again.
Yep.
Does that work in your world here too?
Yeah, blanket POs are great. I mean, typically if a customer has a blanket PO, if the cost of the repair is below 50%, we can usually move forward with the repair.
It's like automatically go ahead and repair it.
Yep, we'll just send
But
the
if
customer
it
the
falls
email.
over that 50%,
Then the customer has the option to, well, they always have the option.
you have to notify them anyway.
Yeah, they're going to be notified
Yeah.
even if it's below 50%,
They got to authorize it.
but
to
they're
be
just
able
going to be, yep, just an authorization just to say, go ahead. And
Okay.
that way they're not having to get with their accounting department,
Yep.
get another PO for each tool that comes in, especially if you have multiple tools coming in at one time.
So if somebody, let's say they may not be buying from Air Power now, they're interested because they're interested in possibly a service contract for the ease of doing business for them. Do they just call the 800 number?
They can just call the 800 number.
So 800-334-1001 and just talk to somebody.
Press 2 for service.
Press 2 for service department. You might get to him.
You may get me.
You might get Tyler. All right, so let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of the common things that field service does, the outside field service in the field. And first of all, how far, Air Power, we have offices in, our basic geography is, let's call it, maybe New York. Pennsylvania, the Virginias. You come down, you got Kentucky, a lot of Kentucky, and then possibly a little bit in Arkansas, Mississippi for sure, Louisiana, and everything in the southeast from that, the whole push. So with that, we have reach down to Orlando, we have reach up to Baltimore, we have reach over to Chattanooga, which is central to that,
Correct.
that southeast. And then you have others. I mean, obviously, Salem's in there as well, and Greenville. But with that, in some cases, does your team, do you guys travel from here anywhere, or do we have other people in those other branches that do serious field service?
We do have people in the branches that do other field service, but we also, right now, is a growing part of the company. So we're trying to get more and more people on board. But yes, we do have a couple of guys that help us out, but we do travel wherever needed.
So I guess right now it's basically up to their proficiency, whoever we have in another office as we grow.
Yes.
If we have a service contract and the need is there and you're the one that can fix it, you're going.
Yeah.
All right. So what kinds of projects are very typical in field service and with as well as service contracts?
Typically we handle a lot of breathing air applications.
That'd be like Bullard and
Yeah, Bullard air systems.
okay.
We go out, we do yearly air quality testing.
Okay.
We do monthly calibrations, and we also do filter changes, whole plant filter changes, things like that for,
So those
for
are-
any
those-
breathing air.
The breathing air, and that's required by
Yes.
law. So, there's a lot of things that have to be inspected with that. So, I can't tell you how many people that I've seen that don't monitor that. And I hope someone doesn't get caught not monitoring that, because it won't be fun. Okay, so that's cool. Another one we had down here was sensor replacements and installation.
Yeah, a lot of the breathing air monitoring stuff, we can replace that
Okay.
and make sure that it's calibrated. So if something's going wrong with your breathing air equipment, we can generally fix it on site.
Some of it's light and some of it's sound, right? You can put a horn on those.
Yes.
Yeah, that'll
Yeah,
warn you. when
that'll
you're-
warn inside the booth so that the operator knows that, hey, something's going on with my fresh air.
I'm hoping to do a podcast on breathable air here in the near future, and one of the things, I know there's been, a lot of tightening in that world as far as regs, and now it's been this way for a while. But if you didn't know, on the breathable air, that from the air source to the operator has to maintain the exact same manufacturer's
Yes.
equipment all the way out, hose, fittings, everything, because there have been unfortunate situations where somebody grabbed something else and plugged it in, and it ended up being from some kind of a tank that had other chemistry in it
Yes.
that killed them quickly. So you got to be careful. So this is really important. Maintenance contracts. I guess that's a pretty broad.
Yeah, a lot of times we go out, we do, I guess, pump room maintenance as far as paints are concerned, changing filters, things like that, pump swaps. We also, any kind of 2K component, do the maintenance on that because it requires a lot of maintenance, most of the 2K stuff. So
Okay. Are you seeing filter changes, paint booth filter changes? That hasn't come around for us yet.
we actually have one contract with a customer. It's actually the city of Charlotte at one point in time, where we did their maintenance on their one of their paint booths. But we haven't done a whole lot of that. No.
I'm going to be talking about that pretty soon, I'm pretty sure. All right, so we've talked about the emergency breakdowns and whatnot going out on site. A lot of that falls under under service contracts, right?
Yes.
But you probably also get your fair share of oops and
yeah. I had one this morning, as a matter of fact. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Can you, without telling us who, give us an example of what it is?
They actually, over the weekend, they forgot to flush out their unit, so.
Was it a pump or a paint mixing?
It was a 2K.
Okay.
Unit, so.
A proportioning system,
Yeah.
and they didn't, so it's all locked up.
It was locked up, yeah.
Wow. So what, that involves some pretty serious time.
Yeah, it was a complete tear down. And
Yeah.
so luckily, they are one of our general maintenance contracts. So they have spare parts, so it was easy as going and swapping out components and bringing it back here for repair.
Boy, I can imagine what you guys have seen. I've spent a good time in the Chattanooga office, and I remember going back there one day, and Opie was back there, and a big pump came in, and it was entirely covered in paint, like thick or whatever it was.
Oh, yeah.
It probably wasn't paint, but it was like the everlasting gobstopper when you went to start to break through it to try to get into it. So some of that can be expensive, but sometimes cleaning those is a lot cheaper than buying a brand new one. What they're going to pay you for the labor.
Yep.
So, and the last thing that we talked about was that if for some reason it's a rare situation and Air Power doesn't have a solution to the problem immediately,
Yes.
Then that means we do
find
not
that.
sell it.
yeah, that's probably right. Yeah. That happens to be in the field sometimes. They're like, how about this filter? I'm like, I have no idea what it is.
So, yeah.
What's it supposed to do?
Yep.
So, but we've been good at trying to find solutions for problems that we didn't even sell.
Yes.
So when it doesn't go right.
I mean, not to name drop here, but we don't service anything from Harbor Freight.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nope.
Nothing.
Nor what do we call it? Never mind. I don't even want to bring it up. But yeah, we're not going to service.
No. It's,
You got to be careful. I mean, I guess like when you're working at home on a home hobby project, that's kind of what they're for.
right.
We're not talking, like industrial, long term. Abuse a piece of equipment
Right.
and it still goes for a long time.
Exactly.
It's not like that. But, for woodsman, like crafty stuff at home or basic auto repair, basic welding, basic tool cutting, whatever is okay. But
I'm still buying the English
in our
Iron
world,
Donna
yeah,
bread.
that's right. That's right. It's just, I think some of that's more accessible to the home
Right.
guy, the guy at home versus. So anyway, maybe we can make that change happen. So all you home hobby people, just give us a call. 1-800-334-1001. I want to thank these guys, Chris. Thank you, brother. Thank you, Tyler.
Appreciate it, man.
Good doing this with you again. And again, 1-800-334-1001. Thanks for joining us. And I want to close this podcast out with what I always close it with. Manufacture it a great day.
Thank you for joining the Air Power Airwaves podcast. Air Power Airwaves is a production of Air Power Inc. and Air Power Live Studios and is hosted by Travis Stirewalt. For more information, please visit airpowerairwaves.com. For more information on all of our products, brands, and manufacturing solutions, please visit airpower-usa.com. If you have any questions or need product support, please contact Air Power at 1-800-334-1001.